All right, we are ready for the next chapter titled Feeding Time, which is chapter 23. While the giants were being captured, a tremendous bustle and hustle was going on back home in England. Every earth digger and mechanical contrivance in the country had been mobilized to dig the colossal hole in which the 9 giants were to be permanently imprisoned. 10,000 men and 10,000 machines worked ceaselessly through the night under powerful arc lights, and the massive task was completed only just in time. The hole itself was about twice the size of a football field and 500 feet deep. The walls were perpendicular, and engineers had calculated that there was no way a giant could escape once he was put in, even if all 9 giants were to stand on each other's shoulders. The topmost giant would still be some 50 feet from the top of the hole. The 9 giant-carrying helicopters hovered over the massive pit. The giants, one by one, were lowered to the floor, but they were still trussed up, and now came the tricky business of releasing them from their bonds. Nobody wanted to go down and do this because the moment a giant was freed, he would be sure to turn on the wretched person who had freed him and gobble him up. As usual, the BFG had the answer. "I has told you before," he said. "Giants is never eating giants, so I's going down, and I shall untie them myself before you can say Rack Jobinson." With thousands of fascinated spectators, including the Queen, peering down into the pit, the BFG was lowered on a rope. One by one, he released the giants. They stood up, stretched their stiffened limbs, and started leaping about in fury. "Why's they putting us down here in this grob sludging hole?" they shouted at the BFG. "Because you is guzzling human beings," the BFG answered. "I's always warning you not to do it, and you's never taken the titchiest bit of advice." "Well, in that case," the flesh lump eater bellowed, "I think we's guzzling you instead." Here they are lowering the giants down. The BFG grabbed the dangling rope and was hoisted out of the pit just in time. The great bulging sack that he had brought back with him from giant country lay at the top of the pit. "What's in there?" the Queen asked him. The BFG put an arm into the sack and pulled out a gigantic black and white striped object about the size of a man. "Schnozkumbers," he cried. "This is the repulstant Schnozkumber, Magister, and now that is all we's going to give these disgustive giants from now on." "May I taste it?" the Queen asked. "Oh, don't, Magister, don't," cried the BFG. "It's tasting of trog filth and pig squibble." With that, he tossed the Schnozkumber down to the giants below. "Here's your supper," he shouted. "Have a munch on that." He fished out more Schnozkumbers from the sack and threw them down. The giants below howled and cursed. The BFG laughed. "It serves them right, left, and center," he said. "What will we feed them on when Schnozkumbers are all used up?" the Queen asked him. "They's never being used up, Magister," the BFG answered, smiling. "I's also bringing in this sack a whole bungle of Schnozkumber plants, which I's given, with your permission, to the royal gardener to put in the soil. Then we's having an everlasting supply of this repulsant food to feed these thirst-bloody giants on." "Well, what a clever fellow you are," the Queen said. "You are not very well educated, but you are really nobody's fool. I can see that." Here he is feeding the Schnozkumbers. And that actually is the end of that chapter. That was a short one.